All right, welcome everybody. We should be live. Can you give us some thumb up in the chat to see if you hear well? Good evening, Mark.
Hey, good evening, Cedric.
So how are we? How are we sound? Good, bad, echo? Okay, waiting for you folks in the chat, and just we start. And we are reaching. Okay, we all good, and we already have 100 people with us tonight. So let's do it again. Good morning, good evening, people, wherever you are on the planet. This is yet another workshop live stream hands-on for you. And today we will discuss microservices with Spring Data, Cassandra, and Spring Boot. And tonight I do have a very special guest with me. So hello, Mark. Pretty cool to have you tonight. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hey, Cedric. Great to be on your show. So my name is Mark, and I'm project lead of the Spring Data project. I'm also leading the Redis driver, which is named Lettuce. So it's always a healthy alternative to all the other drivers, right? I'm working also on R2DBC, and R2DBC stands for Reactive Relational Database Connectivity. So basically, non-blocking database access, a specification that is driven by the community. And I'm doing lots of other things in the open source space. I'm using music, and I keep expressing activity, and I really like to stay in touch with the community, because after all, it's all about communication. So feel free to reach out to us now through the chat. You can tweet us, you can tweet me, or just go head over to my SoundCloud and listen to some music like you wanted.
That's cool. I listened to this music all this afternoon, and it's pretty cool. I like trance, but I must say that it's pretty cool. All right, so for tonight, it's not only me and Mark on screen as usual. We do have the full crew, DataStax developer with us, listening to your question either on YouTube chat or our Discord. If you do have longer form question, Discord is better. We can do 101, and we are more people there. You can see that we changed our logo. So today is a big day for DataStax. We're branding, new UI, new stuff. If you like the content we are doing, please consider to subscribe. We reached 7K subscribers this year, which is cool because we almost started with 0 this year. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so we are streaming on YouTube. We disabled Twitch for tonight. So stay with us on YouTube. And all the links you need for today are in the YouTube description. So the GitHub repo containing the slides and the hands-on and everything. You don't need to install anything as usual. I told you question on Discord and YouTube, did that already twice. And as usual, we have menti.com to ask you question live, and we will start in a minute. So stay with us with the YouTube, but open a new tab and go to menti.com. I will give you a link and we can start asking you question. All right. So let's go back to the slide deck now and see what we will do. So tonight we will build the to-do application. Okay, people coming from the front-end world knows that when you need to learn a new language, you tend to start with the to-do. And so there is a TodoMVC.com website where you can have the implementation of this sample app, To-Do MVC, in every JS framework possible. With this success, has been created ToDoBackend.com, because now people creating backend would like as well to try to get some awareness, and you find dozens of implementation as well. Today we will do one, exposing a REST API and using Spring Data Cassandra to talk to Cassandra. You don't have to install anything. This is also what is cool with this workshop. We will give you an IDE for free in the cloud with everything's provided. And you don't have to install Cassandra either, because we will use Cassandra as a service in the cloud, and you will see it's free, no credit card, nothing. if you already have a DataStax Astra account, you can reuse it, of course. I will explain you all that. All right, so pretty simple agenda, how to create the To-Do app and how to connect that To-Do app to Cassandra. That's straight to the point. All right, so you can start by going to the repo. So this is the GitHub repo we will use today. And so I put you the QR code, I give you the link. The link is also in the description of the video. What I will do is going there, okay? So DataStax Academy, this is the GitHub account we are using for all the workshop we are doing. So a little bit of shameless advertising here. So we do have a session about Kubernetes, about microservices, about front-end, benchmarking, Python, Node, JDBC over Cassandra, tons of workshop. And tonight, Spring Data Cassandra, go there. And so what we will do is each time you will have all the instruction on the readme.md. Okay, that should not surprise you, but something is quite new. When we are done with step 1, we will go to branch part 1, then we do have new instruction, okay, and when we are done, we are moving to branch part 2, and so forth and so on. So every time we do an exercise, and even if you don't complete this code, you can simply check out the next branch and you will get ready to follow on. So that also means if somebody join us in between the stream, they can directly check out the proper branch and follow along with us what we are doing, okay? So that also means that anything that you do or you may stuck, the solution is in the next branch. Okay, so if I go to main, simply what I want you to do is go there and click open in Gitpod. So you should do right click open in a new tab because that's the Gitpod button issue. If you click, it will open in the same browser. But anyway, so that we will do, it will providing you an IDE in the cloud. So it's a VS Code with all the extension needed to work with not only Java, but Spring Boot, Lombok, and everything. And as you can see, the IDE is there. I do have terminal, okay? I can start type command, I can start doing stuff. And on the main, I simply created an empty project, but I will explain how to do so, just to have the build success. And this IDE has downloaded all the Maven dependency for today, even before starting. It's a Docker image, so it may take a minute or so to start. And with that, we will be good to do. We will be good to go with the exercise. And see here, I do have the README, and what they expect me to do is see, oh, so this is your project. Oh, yes, it is. You do have a terminal. Yes, I do. So I go over here, and you do have a command line GP for Gitpod, and I say Gitpod URL 1990. I should put that bigger for sure. Now you see that I do have the URL that will be used by any application I start listening on 8080, okay? But each time I give you the command to copy paste, okay? You should have some invite to import the project as a Java project, just to be sure you can edit the code and ask the ID to do the auto-completion or do the proper imports. It's not as powerful as your local ID, but there is everything you need. And so I can go here and see on my project, I have already installed for you the Spring Boot extension pipe, the Lombok extension pipe, and the Spring Boot tools. And I also enable autosave. So, you should have a look on Gitpod. They are very cool. It's free. That's, we love that. And then you don't have to install anything. You want to do the workshop on your laptop? You can. You simply need an IDE, Maven, Java, and curl. but you are on your own. I mean, there is no instruction for you to how to download kern on Windows, for instance. Okay. All right, so that's simply it. I just use gp url 8080. Okay, it gives you, but there is nothing listening to these URL right now, because yeah, we need to start creating the app first. And so what is being asked is going to branch part 1 by doing git checkout. I should really put that bigger. yeah, as big as I can. Okay. Git checkout part 1, and what will happen that you have now been switched to a new branch. And if you look at the preview, now the preview is named part 1, and you have the table of content for part 1. Okay, so that's it for bootstrapping. Let's introduce you what is Spring, because we do have beginners, and after that we will go back here and do the exercise with you. All right, so that was open gitpod main, and here we go. Okay, question keep coming, and David are on the question. So error with gitpod, yeah, let's see how it goes. It should work with any browser, I mean modern browser. So we have tested that with Firefox, Chrome obviously, and Brave. Okay, so the Todo MVC and TodoMVC.com, I already introduced that briefly on the full logical architectures web view. And part 1 is go to this URL and try that. So let's move forward. And as I told you, now there is TodoBackend.com, and here you can see, and you will see how many implementations there are. And guess what? The implementation for tonight is not yet their part of their list. We really need to do the pull request just to say, hey, now we do have the Spring Data Azure, Spring Data Astra ready to go. All right. So in the TodoBackend.com, you do have 2 very important HTML files. So the first is the client that will give you the real app. So you don't have to implement a UI today. It's provided by TodoBackend. So I will show you how to do so. And the second is spec. So this web page will execute some integration test to see if your API match the requirements for the To-Do app. So TDD, we will do TDD, but you don't have to write the test on your own. They do have tests, and you need to fit the specification. Okay. And so test running application. So part 1, okay, let's go for it. And Spring will be just a bit later. So moving back to my Gitpod, and I do have here, maybe it's just too big now. I will make it a little smaller if you don't mind, because now I don't even see what I'm doing. Okay, so run the existing To-Do app. So they ask you to go to To-Do MVC, I told you, and you can pick some implementation, AngularJS, and you do have the To-Do, so sample task. This is the UI we will use today, and you don't have to implement it. So sample test, do something, and what I did, I simply click on the To-Do MVC link. Okay, that should be quite easy for you. As you can see, nothing to install. All right, okay, so people jumping on the technical issue if maybe you're running in a VPN or everything. Okay, so now you know what the UI look like. So you can create a to-do, you can mark a to-do as complete, you can delete a to-do, and you can remove all the complete, and you can simply do some filtering. But what that means for the backend is you need to list all the to-do, find a to-do by its ID, update a to-do, delete all the to-do, or delete one to-do. Okay, that's really the CRUD, create, read, update, delete operations. Our goal is not to trick you tonight, is really to start with the more basic app we have, because we want to show you how to build it. Now, not you to understand the specification. It's complex enough just to get your hands on the technical stack. Okay, then we do have the backend. And you know, when you are building an app, you know, a Java app, and you want to run this app for free, there are multiple PaaS, so cloud provider, platform as a service out there that will give you free hosting hours. And there are multiple examples of this to-do backend implementation. I gave you 3 links over here, 1, 2, 3. You can pick any one, anything, and open as well in a new tab. It could take a few seconds to start because Heroku is lazy, but I guess that you have been faster than me, and not only the app is started, but we already have some data. So I click on link number 2, I add my data, but see link number 3, because I'm eating this implementation, it takes some time to boot. And now it has been boot, and I do have my empty to-do list. So if I look at the 3 link, this implementation is done with Spring Boot, this one is Quarkus, and this one is Micronaut. But you know, who cares about the implementation? That's really, I simply want you to understand that there are already implementation hosting running somewhere. So what we want to do is just to show you what is the spec runner. So I introduce you, there is a web page named the spec runner that will connect to the existing URL and execute a couple of tests. So if I copy paste GP preview, okay, it will open me on the side a browser, and you will see that this guy will execute the integration test against the endpoint I provided. So I provided you 3 endpoints, and of course these integration tests are idempotent, so you can run them multiple times. But if you experience some slowness in the service, maybe it's because we are all of us eating the same free tier Heroku services, and you know, we are almost 200 doing the exercise. Okay, so I did it with spec runner 1. You could pick 2 or 3. It's not a big deal. Okay, so what we want you to do is create an app that passes all these tests and is connected to Cassandra. Okay, that was it for the unit test. Now, if we want to play, and if you want to say, I can also go and I don't use only the spec runner, I use the client. So copy pasting GP preview. And here, see, now I do preview. And so I say, hello there, how many people did the exercise? Please don't write stupid things because they will be seen on screen. We're all using the same DB. It's not the DB, it's an instance in memory probably, but everything that you do, I mean, I should refresh and see your task. Blah, blah, blah. So that means somebody run the unit test that will delete all and recreate blah, 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 which are the 3 test tasks. But, you know, I can go test and refresh. And bath the cat. So, you know, now you get the ID. We are all using the same instance. Okay. And this is the expected output. And you know what? I will wait, let's say, 2 minutes for you to try that. I'm maybe going fast, and you know, I really want you to have the workspace initialized and try this app, which is simply copy paste. Okay, and when you are ready, give me a thumb up in the YouTube chat, and I know I can move on.
So Cedric, what would you then add to the to-do list? What are your to-dos still for before Christmas?
Oh, yeah. I need to finally go out and purchase some prison, because you know I'm in France. We just have been relieved from the lockdown, 8 weeks lockdown. So I finally can go out and pick some present. What about you? Do you have
Oh,
something
nice.
to?
Well, I was bathing my dog yesterday, so relating to bath the cats. But yeah, we have also a cat. But if I would try to bath our cat, then I would probably get killed by our cat. Other than that, Germany is in lockdown since today.
Okay.
So the only way how to get presents is using the usual online shops that you would.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody knows
But
this guy.
we have to get still a Christmas tree, and yeah, and wrap actually the present. So I have one for my son and my wife, and I still need to do all the wrapping.
Oh yeah. Oh, don't tell me that I don't have the paper to wrap the present as well. Okay, that's now. Okay, you know what? Something like that. Okay, now I do have that on my to-do. Jeez, yeah, I totally forgot about those. Yeah, so let's see. Steam seems like people try to catching up. We are not in a hurry. I think we are good on time, and our goal is really you to practice. And David telling us on the YouTube chat that wrapping gift is the bane of my existence. You should delegate this task to your wife. I mean, it does not work for me, but you can try. I tend to do it myself. Yeah, so yeah, back to lockdown for you. That's hurt. Okay, but for you to have no echo, I introduce just something, and you may hear some notification sound. I just disable them. Okay, do you want a bit of music? Maybe I should have some music. Mark music? No, I want you to work. No, let's start with something very, very cool, but I really need that music to be pretty low. So let's go. Oh, here. Okay. Did you hear the music?
No.
No, I know, Mark, you don't. I mean, you're probably the only one that don't listen to music. And that's always funny because sometimes I say, are you really playing music? No, I don't. Okay. So, I mean, let's wait 1 more minute. Cool. Okay, so let's see, what's need to be done next time. You're just all eating. Hello, Johnny. You're all eating the same endpoint, so if you want to be creative, go to the third one. But you know what? You will have your very own today, using your own database. That's pretty cool. And it will be there forever. And okay, let me. Okay, boom. Cool. I mean, David is on fire on all the questions. Okay, so Dedis dead is now down. Cool. And I simply did part 1. I did not create the Spring Boot app yet. I will go back to a couple of slides. I mean, Mark will do, and we will go back here and create our app. So let's see. Okay. so people are creative, try to patch as well the title. Yes, I mean, that's part of the spec, going with the patch keyword, the HTTP keyword, you will change the name, and the completion true, false, and the order of the task in the list. Yes. Okay. So give us a thumbs up. Are you done? It can take some time to have the Gitpod open, because it's a GitHub image that would be created on spot and downloaded on spot. So depending on your bandwidth, you can take about 2-3 minutes to have your Gitpod ready to go. And of course, we are using Maven, and Maven download half for internet. We should have a contest, NPM versus Maven, and compare how much disk you need for both.
Yeah, but Cedric, if you download half the internet with Gitpod, then basically you're downloading the internet from the internet. So how is this supposed to work?
Yeah, that's so meta, but yeah, true, totally true. Okay, so we will shut down this music. Let's move on. Let's introduce a bit Spring and go back there just to create the Spring app altogether. Okay, so go back over here, and now the floor is yours, Mark. I simply have a couple of slides, so yeah, simply tell me how to move forward.
Okay, sure, great. So thank you. So what is Spring? Spring started in the early 2000s, like 2001, 2002, back in the day when the majority of people were building Java enterprise applications with basically what they had, with JDBC, with enterprise Java beans, with messaging systems, all these cool things basically that kicked off and that led basically to where we are today. And it was kind of cumbersome to work with all these APIs because, in JDBC, there are so many caveats that can go wrong. You have SQL exception all over the place. You have to open and close all the statements, result sets, and what have you. Working with EJB and those deployment descriptors wasn't all that fun, right? And so a couple of folks came together that wanted to make developers productive again, to not spend so much time on the common infrastructure things that everybody has to deal, but rather to focus on the business side of things. And that's essentially how Spring was born, as a wrapper around several Java Enterprise APIs. Now, Spring has grown big. And if you say Spring, then there is no single thing that is Spring, but there is a Spring Framework, there is Spring Data, there's Spring Security, there's Spring Cloud, Spring Boot, and many, many more of those components. And if you're talking about a particular project, then nowadays, then you typically either talk about Spring Framework and Spring Boot. And there's a difference between those two. Spring Framework is the core framework that provides all the dependency injection functionality, the core container where you specify beans, where you follow the principle of dependency inversion, where you declare a dependency and then let the container inject that dependency into your component. And you no longer track instances yourself, because that is something which is, again, infrastructure code. Everybody has to do that. And instead, everybody letting to deal with the infrastructure code, Spring can take care of that and provide you with an application container that provides you with bean initializations, lifecycle method, bean destruction methods, so that you can simply hook into that, and you drop in basically your business logic into that, and then you should be good to go, right? But the life is not typically as easy as that. And I think we can move on to the next slide, Cedric. Right? So over time, programming model have emerged. And what became a pretty good pattern to implement things is starting with an interface where you declare basically all your methods, and then you have one or multiple implementations depending on what you're planning to do. And those implementations can be then registered within the Spring framework that provides you with a core container. And from the consumption side, you typically inject that interface or declare that you want to use that interface. And then Spring takes care of that, of spinning up the bean, creating that instance, creating the consumer of that interface, and injecting that dependency. And in here, in this example, we have three things. We have a greeting services interface, which exposes a single method, the say hello method. This interface is implemented by the greeting service implementation to simply hide the implementation part. Typically, you would have a package protected class and only have that interface public. So that is the entry point to your functionality. The component class implements that method and basically returns hello on the say when calling say hello. And you're going to use that greeting service in your API probably. If you want to expose it through REST, or you want to expose it through some other mechanism. But yeah, HTTP is today the thing that you go mostly for it. And instead of creating an instance of greeting service implementation and my API, and then wiring these things together in your main method, you give Spring the information that you have a greeting service implementation class, and then you have an my API class. And then Spring is going to create all those instances for you and launching basically your application. And finally, you're going to expose that method, this say hello method, through an HTTP call. And again, Spring can help you with these things. The core programming model in Spring is basically that you have components and services. And how you are going to expose this functionality is up to you. Over time, we recognized that supporting users with workloads that are exposed through HTTP services makes a lot of sense. So Spring came up with a component called Spring Web MVC, which is a utility that helps you to define HTTP endpoints and accept payloads and get being called on those services, right? And there are many more of these components that you can use from the Spring portfolio, not only limited to web. Right. Exactly. And whether you use the arrangement like it is shown here with an interface and implementation, or you have simply implementation classes, that's totally up to you. Spring isn't going to constrain you in the choices that you're going to make, but rather to make you productive by taking away that infrastructure burden.
Yes.
And I think this is a good point to switch to the next slide. So right now what we have seen is an example for the core container and for Web MVC. But over time, we have also learned that there are many more kinds of workloads that you want like to use. What we have seen is an example for a service for a standalone service, whether it's a microservice, whether it's something that runs on your machine or part of monolith. Spring basically doesn't care. But what Spring can do for you is if you have other types of workloads, like event-driven workloads or batching workloads where you process a lot of data, there are portfolio projects that can help you with that. something like Spring Batch, where you can specify your source of data, how it is being processed, and then where the data is going. The same goes for event-driven workloads, where Spring Cloud Function can help you defining source and things, where you can plug in even Spring Cloud Stream to help you with these event-driven workloads, whether you have a Kafka, whether you have an AMQP input, transformation of the data, and then you basically put it into some other thing and let the data process it as well. You can have serverless workloads with very thin functionality, where Spring Cloud Function can help you with. There are application frameworks for reactive programming. If you haven't heard about reactive, don't worry about that. This is typically the thing that you go if you grow beyond Netflix size, in terms of scale, right?
Yes.
That company that does monitoring primarily, and by accident they stream also movies. Sorry, just joking.
Got it.
Yeah, if you require a lot of scalability and your workloads are push-oriented or stream-oriented, then reactive programming can help you a lot of that. But nowadays, you typically go with for something which ranges between microservices, cloud, and web applications. And if you like, then you can pick Spring components to help you with, because they integrate seamlessly into the Spring framework itself and into the things that are provided by the other Spring portfolio projects like Spring Boot. So let's see what we have on the next slide.
Yes, speaking about Spring Boot.
Yes, exactly. So I was talking for the most time about a Spring framework itself, which provides all the core functionality where you can pick components from. And over time, we realized that it makes sense to spin up applications as standalone jar. So going away from that huge web application server or application server in general, that is difficult to set up, that eats all your memory, and where you have to wait for ages until your application is deployed. And that's the point where Spring Boot was created, to create a standalone application that ships with all the dependencies that you need. You can either build a jar file and run it through Java jar, or you can build a web application archive that you can simply drop into your Tomcat or JBoss or what have you, with the ultimate goal to improve developer productivity. Because over time, we found that a lot of folks are building web applications, and a majority of them has the same issue, that there's a heavy application server, which is difficult to administer, which is flaky which is like a snowflake in terms of configuration, because you set it up on production, and then you have to replicate that into your dev or test environment, and every single application server has a different configuration, and this is a no-go if you wanted to have a consistent deployment and production model, right? So Spring Boot came into play by abstracting things like the configuration, the way how applications are built, and also things like dependency management. So Spring Boot provides you with a series of pre-managed dependencies that are known to work together, so that you don't run into a jar hell, into a dependency hell with version conflicts. And this is just a small part that Spring Boot really provides to you. And again, all this is built on top of a Spring framework, so you can have parts of that even without a Spring Boot. But if you go for Spring Boot, then you have a very nice package of things that come out of the box. I mentioned already configuration. You get things like metrics support. You can plug in your micrometer into Spring Boot and ship the metrics into your most favorite metric system. You can get health checks, not only in terms of status checks, but if you intend to run your application in the cloud or deploy it to your Kubernetes cluster, then you get out of the box support for these runtime environments, so that Spring Boot adapts really to the thing that you want to achieve by just encapsulating the infrastructure work that is required for every single application. So the only thing that you then need to drop into the application then is how you want to connect with a data source, what your business code should look like. You can have a presentation layer that does either serve your application through a REST API or HTTP API, or do server-side rendering. And you have all those choices and options. And I think this is important to mention, that you're not being constrained by any of these things, but rather you pick the thing that works for you and that you require to do your business application.
And we will pick some of the external features here just in the next hands-on. But you will see on the UI how many features are available in the Spring Boot ecosystem. So that's huge. Okay, so I think you cover already most of this stack. Just Mark told you that Spring also provide now the full reactive stack in front of the servlet stack, which could be async, but now reactive, two-way, server-side notification, as Mark stated, and a new way to interact with the database. But those are really focused in performance, and you already need huge volume and throughput to have an impact in performance using reactive. All right, so speaking of Spring Boot, I think it's now good time for you to create your Spring Boot app. Let's go for it. I give you 5 minutes. No, just kidding. Spring is the Spring team has give us a pretty nice tool called start.spring.io that I learned recently you can run on your own or even embedded in your app. So it's Spring Initializer, and this is where you will define what you need. So now if I want to work DataStax, yada, and I can add dependencies like Spring Boot tools, like Spring Web, and we told you that there were a lot of dependencies and a lot of starters and metrics. See how much I need to browse to have everything. That's just huge. But which is good as well is when you are defining what you need, you can simply share a link and have the settings for your app, and you can share the settings of your app to everybody. So guess what I did? I simply go, and if you click this link in big, boom, this is what we will need today. So we will create a project, DataStax workshop, to do backend Spring Data. You don't have to do it. I mean, I've created the skeleton of the project. I have downloaded a zip. I have extracted the zip and committed the content on the GitHub. So next step, we will go to branch part 2, and you would have the empty app ready to go. So let's see what I pick. I pick the Spring Web, which embedded the REST controller. So Spring REST is both the REST API and Spring MVC that contain model view controller to do a UI. Okay, so multiple choice for the UI framework. I think the most used is Timeleaf, but you do have also FreeMarker or extra UL tools. We do have the Spring Data Cassandra, of course. We do have the dev tools. So what we want is, as soon as you change the code, the app will restart and you see immediately what you change or what you broke, depending on how good developer you are. But that's pretty neat. That's pretty useful. And the Lombok, which is Java annotation library, just to reduce the boilerplate. Forget about getters and setters. Now with a couple of annotation, you have your Pojo setup, and Actuator, which is the else check that Mark spoke about. Just importing Spring Boot Actuator will give you dedicated endpoint to see if your app is up or not.
Yeah, and actually it can ships really with a lot of features, not only health checks and metrics, but you can also introspect which beans are running. There's a tracer that allows you to capture which were the most recent incoming HTTP requests to do debugging, and really a lot of production ready features that are handy if you intend to run your application on production.
Yeah,
which is probably the ultimate goal of every app, of course.
true. And adding these metrics, these component in simply adding the proper keys in the single configuration file of the project. By default, not everything is exposed for security reason, but it's your choice to see what you want to expose and how. Okay, so let me close the preview. Can I do that? Yeah, no, I want. Oh, like that. Okay. So I want to show the README, but I want to show the preview of the README. Okay. Don't do like me. Okay, and go back to part 3. So we have the Spring initializer. Okay, and so everything has been imported for you already on Gitpod. Okay, you're welcome. And so the app is really what you would have if you download the zip and import the zip. It's really the empty app and only that. So if I go to the folder which have the app, so to-do backend - Spring Data, you see that it's a fully ready to go Maven project with in the POM all the dependency I would need to run the actuator, Spring Data, Cassandra, web. And you can see that it's simply a matter of Spring Boot starter. Okay, so I click a POM. So now workspace contain Java would like to import them. Please click always. That will enable all the tools for you to develop Java code in the coming hour. Okay, so what I've been asked, go to the folder and now start the app. So to start the app, there is a Maven plugin, Spring Boot Maven plugin. And so I will simply Spring Boot -run. So it will download what needs to be downloaded, not part of the proper initialization in the beginning. And no suspense, it will fail. Okay? And so why it failed is simply because here on the Spring Boot app, the main app, there are some auto configure. Okay, something that will depending on the dependency you have, will configure your Spring Boot app. And what happened is, oh, you do have a Spring Data dependency, so I will try to build a Spring, not a Spring, but a Cassandra connection. But hey, we are on Gitpod, and as of now, we didn't tell Gitpod how to connect to any Cassandra database. So by default, it will not start because you cannot connect to Cassandra. So what do? We simply say, oh, for now, don't try to connect to Cassandra. So I give you here. And so you can either import with Gitpod saying import, or copy paste the import. But that's cool for me to show you how to import the class. Okay, and now he is happy. You don't have to save. Remember, I set up the autosave for you. And if you start to, if you try to start again, let's see. Boom, boom, boom. So unit test is okay. And now it will start, okay? It's starting, so something starting on port 8080, okay? You can see preview, you can see that those port has been open, and I can open preview, and okay, this is exactly on the README. The app is started, I promise, but we hit a page telling us, okay, but there is nothing to listen on this roof content. So I don't have anything to show you, and so I will give you the default error page, 404, nothing to show. So I don't want you to I don't want to let you like that. So what we will do, let's stop the app. I mean, I could have let him run because with the Spring Boot dev tool, it will have restart. But to be honest, I don't know the behavior with Gitpod. In my IDE, I know it's working, especially as I'm using the Spring STS. But let's see, what I have here is I do have a Hello World REST controller. So what I will do, I will go in my project and I create a new repo, a new package, a new folder, and I will name that Hello. So if you are an experienced Java developer, I mean, I started Spring with Interface 21, to be honest, and that's crazy. It's like 15 years ago or something. And so I used to put in dedicated package all the DAO, all the services, all the REST resources. Whereas now it's more business oriented. You will put everything in the package that relate to the same business domain, and that's easier because now you can move your package and everything that's related are in the same folder. So I will create a new class. So let's see, new file .java, okay, and I will copy paste the content. But as that guy is just huge, okay, I will go here. No, I will close you, and this is my code. So let's copy and paste. I mean, you are an experienced Java developer, simply you know how to create an easy Hello World. And now I can restart my app, and because I do have something listening on slash, I will get my Hello World, just telling me that not only the app has initialized, created the Spring context, but also they do have a controller listening on slash and say Hello World. And I can open the preview back, ask to refresh, and now I do have my Hello World.
Hey!
Yeah! Woohoo! And
well, you have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. So guess what? You want a REST API. Look at that. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of code, and I could put everything on 2 lines. So that's how amazing Spring and Framework and Spring Boot in particular give you. Everything is there. You simply now your job is only to code.
There's always the debate: how long or how many lines of code do I need in order to get my HTTP API up and running?
Mm-hmm.
There are probably some frameworks where you can spin up an HTTP server right from the command line. I think Python has something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, there's also the question: how real world is that, and how maintainable is all that? And personally, sometimes I like to type a bit more, but to know that I have a lot of other options where I don't have to throw away the entire application if I need to do a change.
Exactly. So give us a sum up when you are done with this second exercise in part 1. And I will give you back. Allez, let's do another new music for you. Like that, I give you 3 minutes. And we move on. Because just an Hello World is not funny, right? We want that CRUD to do app. The real deal. And in application.properties, as of now, we don't have any keys, but you will see that this is where we will set up the different dependency, and it's all wired by convention. Oh, and we do have Origeva already done. And that's cool. This is what we want. For some reason, if I don't complete all the exercise, who cares? I really want to do that with us. Okay, and we do have question coming. We'll save that for later when we do have introduced Spring Data, which has how do I do this query with Spring Data, you know, already. The in operator. Okay, and I will gain a little time, so I will stop my app and I will execute the 3 commands in the end, just moving to part 2. Don't worry, we will override all the modification we have done, just to be sure to start fresh and okay on part 2, and you do have everything you need. If you simply click on the open in Gitpod, you cannot commit your change because this is our repo, but you can also fork the repo at the beginning, open Gitpod in your own repo, and now you can do everything you like. Okay, hello work done, so congratulations Alberto. Now you have done an hello world using Java Spring Boot. Congrats! Okay, so let's move to part 2. Okay, now I have switched to part 2. I remove the preview here, preview here, preview here, and what I want is the README, preview, and only that. See, it all starts with part 2. And what we want to do is create the CRUD controller. So let's see. I think, yeah, we show how to build the app, and we show what we will do. Yes, so what we will do is simply create the to-do list, but first we will only work in memory. So what we want to do is create the CRUD repository in memory. Okay, and there is not a lot to say on the slide, and see, we will be back pretty soon on the exercise. But you know, do not push you. I gave you 3 minutes. Let's wait for the 3 minutes. And the test is done. If you like it, you know, you can go with the README. It should be self-sustained, self-service. You should have everything you need to complete everything. But you know, if you like and want to move fastest. Again, we tried to talk to multiple experience, beginners to intermediate to advanced.
Probably also what's worth mentioning is that if we look on the REST controller code, so maybe you can open this one. So if we look on that, this is pure Spring, so there is no Spring Boot involved at all. So just look at the imports, which come from org Spring Framework Web, which is an indicator that this is the Spring Framework Web utility. And the only bit where you get really in touch with Spring Boot is with the to-do backend Spring Data Application class, because there you have Spring Boot annotations, there you have utilities that bootstrap your application, and really for the most time when you're working or doing something with Spring Boot, or you are under the impression that you are doing the most time, you're dealing with Spring Framework or one of those portfolio projects, like Spring Data Cassandra, which we will see in a minute.
Exactly. So good feedback from Buana. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. But the GitHub steps are easy to follow. So thank you. That's cool. And seems like also Z's Dead, which marked to be done, used IntelliJ on his local machine. And cool. And so Maven clean install, you get an error, and this is expected, remember? Because the test won't pass if you don't add the exclude instruction in the Spring Boot app. So let me show you that. Beginning of branch part 1, you don't have exclude. And so Spring will try to initialize a Cassandra bin. So part of the exercise is a bit to add the exclude over here. And then the apps should start. And yeah, you need to be in the proper folder, I mean in the to-do backend -spring data folder, not on the roots of the repo. So see, I can show you that here. PWD, see, I really am in the to-do backend Spring Data folder because this is where I do have my pom.xml file. Okay, how we are doing on time? Okay, so 20 more seconds and we simply dig into 2 slides and back to exercise. All right, I will stop the music for now and go back to slide. If you didn't keep up on part 1, no problem, you simply check out part 2 and you will be exactly at the same level as me. This, remember, this is what's cool with this exercise, that you can join in the middle and just be at the same checkpoint as we are. Okay, so if you look at the to-do app based on the UI, those are the queries you need, okay? And when you are building a Cassandra application, what you need to know as input are the entities you want to use and the queries. And most of the time, this is one table per queries. Even if you are using the same kind of data, task by category, task by user, task by whatever, it will be multiple tables. But fortunately, the to-do app is so simple that just create, read, update, delete based on the ID is enough, and we can use a single table and a single class to work with that table. So we will see that in a minute. So I explained already the client and the spec, your Spring Boot app. So you will use the Spring MVC to expose a REST API. We also want to generate a small documentation in the end, so we will use Spring Doc for that. This one is a community project, but it's pretty neat, and I wish to show you that in the end. nothing for you to code on this part, just showing that adding a couple of annotation, now you do have a pretty nice client to test your API. And of course, the meat is really create your repository, okay? And speaking of the repository, so we will have the REST API ready to go, and our job is to implement the repository. First, using in-memory, make the app running, everything in memory, and then when we are confident, switch from in-memory to Cassandra. And repository is really an important part of Spring Data. So after this part, we will pause and dig into Spring Data Cassandra to explain what is a repo. So go back to exercise part 2 like I did. And so what we want you to show is, okay, we have shown a couple of existing apps that implement the spec. If you invoke these endpoints using just a curl, you will see that what we are looking for are JSON format with URL attributes, title, completed, order. Okay. All right. So that's what the JSON should look like. So here I do have a sample formatted. All right. So what I would like to do now is to create a bin, a Java bin, that do have the same attributes as what is expected here. So URL, UUID, title, completed, order. So it's pretty simple, plain old Java object, and I will simply use the annotation data, which is a Lombok annotation that will generate for me getters and setters at build time, post build, and manipulating the bytecode, and now you do have getters and setters, and you don't have to code yourself all the bailing plate code. So let's do that. I will create a new folder. Here I am. New folder, to do. And as of now, I will simply create a new file, todo.java. Okay. And I will paste my, I will paste my little guy. Okay. I tend to always save, Control S, even if the autosave is there. I'm just I'm a creepy, always saving everything I'm doing. Okay. All right. I do have a bin. So far, so good. Next, I want my controller. So I want, REST controller. Listening on /API /v1/todos. So this is simply best practice here. In your app, you tend to want the API to be on /API. In the same API, you may have some web UI, for instance. So /API is always good to have. V1, that's also kind of best practice to have the major version of your API in the URL. And now you can have two major versions of the API running in the same component if needed, even if they are not backward compatible. Just a best practice. And so what I do, this is we want to do create, read, update, delete. So on /, and this is a get mapping, I want find all. On /UID, I want simply one task based on a UID. Find by ID. I need to create. I can simply say create and update. Okay, here two methods have been split because for the first we are using post mapping because we don't know the UID of the task before, and then we use patch to update the to do once it's already existing. We could have used put here, but we need to know the UID. That's kind of the best practice when you build a web API. This is not related to Spring in any way, but that's the way to build a REST API. And you can delete and delete all. Okay. So what I want you to do is create a new class, a new file named to-do rest controller. And this is where it's a bit challenging, okay? Because I gave you the skeleton of the controller, but here you don't have any implementation. And so I will give you 5 minutes. Yeah, I know, it's not a lot. 5 minutes just to try to find the proper data structure you would need to implement only the first method, okay? So what would you do to have this controller working as expected for the find all, okay? And I will give you 5 minutes and I will try working in the beginning. So you can do that on your own, or you can make look at me try. Maybe hope I will be able to do it, okay? Okay, so what I want to do is using a map, okay? I will use for key a UUID because this is what I need, and I can identify in unicity of my to-do only with a UID. I will need my to-do object, and let's call that to-do store, and I want that to be a new concurrent map. Okay, it simply tell me it's not used. Okay, so what I would like to do is simply, you want all the to do? Well, I will use my in-memory to-do store. It's a map, so I want the values, and I want that as a string. So let's look at how pretty it is. You know, you implementing a REST controller, there is no real, you don't have to masterize all the response entity. You simply have to return a list or a stream, and Spring Web will give you the list as expected and everything as expected. I find that very useful and very easy.
Mm-hmm. So Cedric, let's do a round on clean code. So let's make it pretty and easy to understand. So I think we could improve the field declaration by adding final to it, because we don't intend to overwrite the field, right? So we can immediately recognize that this is final storage, and nobody is going to assign a new map to that.
Okay. Yeah, but so should I define that in the constructor, or I can?
No, this is perfectly fine for now. And the second thing probably, which puzzles me, is we don't require right now the HTTP servlet request in find all, right?
You are correct. We don't need it.
So let's get rid of it to make things as simple as easy as possible. And as Cedric said, these aren't really Spring things. This is code hygiene and keeping things as simple and as comprehensible as possible will help you, or your future version of you, to understand what we did here.
Mm-hmm. And so you want a find by ID, so I would try to get my UID, but it's a UUID, so I will do UUID dot from string the UUID, and I will get a to do or not, so I will say optional the to do or to do equal optional dot of new label. And again, you will correct me. Oh boy, now I'm coding in front of the guru, so I hope I won't miss a thing. I don't need that. Okay, and now I will simply say if to-do is not there, I want to return 404, telling that there is nothing here, so I can use response entity and I can just use not found.build, and I'm okay. All right, should be happy. And if the to-do has been found, well, I will simply return response entity. That's okay. Body, it will be to-do.get. And now, I mean, the spec should be okay with this as list. Okay, so for the more intermediate / advanced folk, you can play and do it all the method, but see, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. It's not that difficult. Here we put a course origin filter, cross origin filter. So it's the course. Cross origin resource. You know, if you have already used JavaScript, you know how nasty. I just hate course, you know. If you already use course, you know how hard it is to make that JavaScript connect to your backend if they are not based on the same domain. And so we are using course to allow incoming calls coming from the outside. And don't forget to allow the option. That's kind of tricky because even if you do not invoke any endpoint, the JavaScript will try to invoke with the option keyword just to see if you accept course. And see, it's only a single indentation and you're good to go. So with that, I mean, I could have, okay, I'm cheating, but if in my constructor I want to add a to-do, so let's see, to-do, to-do, okay, t.set UID. So Lombok even working here. So UID.random UID, t.set title, okay, hello, t.set, what do I want? T.set URL, yeah, no, title order 10, t.set, and now to return something, this is why I used rec, because rec has the rec.get server URL. But never mind, I will use stupid thing just as a sample. So let's URL HTTP localhost, I don't know, something like that. And now I want to simply put this guy d.uid t. Okay, so far so good. And now if I start my app, my event, clean, Spring Boot. Okay, this part is very, intermediate to advanced, if you already have used Spring a bit. Okay, so my app is starting. And I can, open a new terminal, let's say, new terminal, and I will gp preview, and what I want to preview is something like gp url 8080 /API/v1/2d, and boom, here I do have my endpoint answering with the little stupid things I did here, but now I do have a REST controller, for the find all and find by ID working, and there is no point to do it all because that's just a sample in memory, so I can just stop that and moving to part 3, I guess, right? So if you did not complete this one, it's not a big deal, okay? All right. Okay, so let's stop the music. Okay, let's see what I do have in my preview readme. So what I did, I've created my controller as you. I have simply, I can have the full connection, the correction if you want to copy paste the correction. You start, you open the preview, and like me, you are pretty happy to go. And you can simply create a task by posting. So you know what? Let's do it quickly. So I do have my solution over here. So to-do rest controller, this is the code I want to get. So I will copy it all, put that in my to-do rest controller. Okay, now I do have everything working. I also want to do, just to update a bit, because I have introduced just how to provide the URL in the to-do bin. It's not that difficult. Okay, to do, of course, is not happy. So let's see. See, now is happy. It's compiling again. Let's start it again. Okay, open the preview. Yeah, right. Open the preview. It's empty. Oh, it should. Is it empty? No, it's not. Why? Oh, no, it's empty. It's just me not refreshing. It's empty, and now you have all the operation implemented. So you can, for instance, create a new task with a curl post, and now if you refresh, your task is there, and you can invoke find all, find by ID, delete the task. You have created a fully working REST controller, and how to see that it's working or not, you can invoke the spec runner against your implementation like that. Okay, and now I do have this guy testing all my modification, and seems is happy with that. All right, okay, I'm going fast, but see, it's could be copy paste and using the endpoint. So yes, let's do that. Okay, and now I should have moved to part 3 because I used the part 3 git command. All right, okay, so I'm on part 3, and before going, let's do, so we do have the to-do app. It's working. The spec told us it's working, but for now it's in memory. What we want to do now, it's move from the in-memory repository to the Cassandra repository using Spring Data. No surprise. So the backend will be Cassandra, and instead of having Cassandra running in the Git pod with the Docker image, because there is no Docker as of now in Git pod, why not use a Cassandra as a service in the cloud? And this service is provided by DataStax, and it's called Astra. Okay, and in Astra you have so Cassandra as a service running plus a bunch of tools outside Cassandra. And so because it's software as a service, you don't have to run Cassandra on your own. It's secure, use the best practice, and it will simplify the development, as you will see pretty quickly. And so if I show you what inside Astra, so inside you do have Cassandra that you can install on any cloud. When you start your instance, you simply tell which cloud do you want to use, and when you pick the cloud, which regions, plural, do you want to use, because you can have multi-region Cassandra cluster. Cassandra is the distributed database, and it scales as you need. You have more throughput, or you need more throughput, more capacity, add new nodes. And with Astra, it's simply adding some capacity. We will use the free tier for today, free forever, not credit card. So we won't have a lot of nodes, but hey, we will have already a Cassandra running. And on top of the database, you do have an API, REST API, GraphQL API. You do have SQL console to interact with the data, DataStax Studio, which is kind of the Apache Jupyter, but dedicated to Cassandra, some tools to load data, and also it's a software as a service, but you can also automate things. So there are some API, DevOps API, to provision your instance, and so authentication, of course, metrics to track what we are doing. And last but not least, if you are into Kubernetes, because we did a lot of content around Kubernetes, DataStax released a couple of weeks ago something called Cassandra. So that's Cassandra plus Reaper plus Medusa plus the Cas operator all running in a Kubernetes cluster. It's open source. Well, you can interface these Kubernetes with Astra using what we call a service broker, and now inside your kube cluster you can invoke Astra to add nodes in Astra. Okay, all right. And so without further ado, let's go to Astra. Okay, so I gave you the link over here. Create your Astra account. So go over here and create your Astra account with the steps. Okay, so it just sign up with GitHub. Why not? Select an option. Oh, what I want to do? I want to build a new app. Okay, I'm happy to use that. And okay. Oh, I already have my database, but if you don't have, simply click here, add database, and you can pick the free tier and select stuff. So it's all written there. Go to Astra, create your instance. If you already have that, fine, you can reuse that. Define a free tier, okay? Provide the region you need. So you will have a reduced number of region because it's a free tier. Free tier is not available everywhere, but if one day you need Cassandra anywhere, it's available on any cloud if you pay, and it could be paired with your own cloud. Okay, so you see AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. Not only you can start your Cassandra nodes on any cloud, but you can do VPC peering with Astra to your own app in your own cloud. Okay, blah 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 blah, and then fill the steps. So I ask for the my free tier DB, key space, to-do key space, to-do user, to-do password. So please try to use the same key space, user, and password, because I would have filled those value inside application.properties for you. So if you pick others' value, that means each time we do a new checkout, you need to update those. But if you follow exactly the same, each time, each checkout, nothing change. You will be good to go. Okay, and I see that Mark is already answering all your questions in the chat. Great, that's cool. I mean, again, we are lucky to have you. Okay, so my database is there, is pending, and when it's done, is active. So if I go back, I do have my database active, right? It's there, it's active, it's running, it's cool. There you do have a sample app gallery. So today is Spring Data Cassandra. So look at that. You do have a starter Spring Data Cassandra. You simply go try now, view in IDE, and it will open Gitpod for you like we are doing. You do have samples for Next.js, Gatsby, serverless, Jamstack. We do have a clone of TikTok. Well, if you want to learn how to build an app instead of having a blog post for kilometers long, just go there, click, try now. You do have the code, and the sample of today is part of the sample gallery. Okay, so what I want to do is go to connect. Okay, so my Cassandra database in Astra has a lot of ways to connect. So I can use the drivers, or I can also use API. So inside Astra, using something called Stargate, you may have some more info on stargate.io. You'll have a document API, GraphQL API to interact with Cassandra. But hey, today we are Spring Data leveraging on the Java drivers. So let's go to Java, okay? And here, to connect our app using the Java driver, we need an extra parameter called the Cloud Secure Bundle. So what I'm doing, I simply right-click, copy the link. It's all written in the README, by the way. I go in my project, and I will curl -l double quote. This is my link, and I want this zip to be in /tmp /creds.zip. And I put this zip on /tmp on purpose. That means each time we will move from one branch to another, your zip is there still in /tmp. And if I do ls.l /tmp /creds.zip, here it is, and it's about 12K. Okay, if it's smaller than that, it's maybe due to your link that has timeout. This link is available for, I think it's 5 minutes, and sometimes you simply need to refresh if you wait too much time to use this link. Okay, so I connect, I download the zip, I see that it has been the proper side, and now I will go to application.properties, okay, fill the keys expected by Spring Data. So with the Spring Data, it's all about Spring Data with Cassandra with Spring Boot is all about convention. So you can use some keys prefixed by spring.data.cassandra. If you are using like Eclipse locally, you do have auto-completion for keys. Here, I'm not sure I do have these, but you know, you can have that on your IDE for sure. And so, key space, to do key space, to do user, to do password. Okay. So as of now, I'm not using Spring Data. I simply define the keys that will be used by Spring Data in a moment. Just to follow the convention, what I will do is go to exercise number 1, and in exercise number 1, using Spring annotation at value and Spring integration with JUnit, so JUnit platform Spring extension. This is a way to interact Spring test with JUnit 5. Okay, we are in 2020 now, it's time to use JUnit 5. And so this is a way to do so. You define where are your keys, test property source, and then you can run your app and see if you can connect to Cassandra. And this is purely the core driver for this v0. Spring Data abstract all this complexity for you, but just for you to understand, you will initialize something called a SQL session, and this object is what helps you to work with Cassandra in all your app. This SQL session object should be a singleton, okay, because it's a stateful object, it's open some TCP two-way connection with the nodes, and you do not want to recreate this guy each time because establishing connection could take some time. And you don't want either to have multiple instances of this guy because in SQL session, all the thread pool to connect to Cassandra is also managed for you. Okay. And so if I want to check, I will copy paste Maven test. So as far as I know in Gitpod, there is no right-click run as unit test. I will ask the Gitpod folks, but I simply go with the Maven command. I simply Maven test, and I provide the name of the test. Okay, and he's not happy, so I'm not in the proper I'm not in the proper folder, so that makes sense.
Yeah, regarding the JUnit support, there's an open ticket, and I've seen that earlier today, and this is still pretty young, so like 20 days ago, somebody filed that ticket.
Okay. All right. And what I did 2 unit tests, one to check connectivity. Okay, you do nothing, just saying that you do have all the parameters needed to connect. And the second is still using the SQL session, you know, the one object connected to Cassandra. Let's create the table, okay? And here with part number 2, you will create the table. So if I go there and I execute test number 2, okay, this will create a table. We'll see that Spring Data will do that for you later, but you know, this part is really, you created the database, you want to check that the app can connect without Spring Data involved as of now. So seems like it's successful. So if I go to Astra and I go to my database, let's see. I want to use SQL console, and I know I can go quite fast, but you know, this session is recorded. It will be available after using the same link, and we are still here to answer any question on Discord even after the stream. So what I would like to do is describe my key space, which is where I store all the tables, and I think I've named that to-do key space. And here my to-do tables has been created already, okay? And so in my app, in Gitpod, I have downloaded the zip, I have defined the login password, key space name, and where to find this zip, and now I can connect and start interacting with Cassandra. So the connectivity part is now down. So we do have the REST API working in memory, and we do have a way to connect to Cassandra. Time to connect the dots and make the full app working. Okay. All right, so I will go quickly on that, and you know, in the same times you can still creating the to-do object and to-do REST controller object. By the way, yes, you should copy paste the solution from the to-do object, because here I did a couple of methods just to set the URL. Okay, in a relational world, you start with your entity, okay, you define the relationship, and so you have the MCD, and a huge, great model, and based on this model, now is the job of the developer to shape, to create complex SQL queries. Cassandra has been designed for high throughput and huge capacity, and so if you want to go fast, you have to shape your data in a way that you want to read them fast. So it's the domain of denormalization, and what you need to do is you need to know your queries and your entities first, and based on that you will define the data model. But it's not starting with the data, it's really starting with what the application needs. So this is all the operation we want the app to have. And so on this YouTube channel, if you search for DS220, there is a full methodology explaining you how to build a Cassandra data model based on your requirements. And as entry point, not only you need the entities, you know, what is a to-do, what are the attributes, what are the relationship, but also your workflow, what are the queries, okay? And based on that, you will create the logical, domain, and physical data model. For my to-do, pretty easy. So this is what I just did in front of you. I do have a UID, which is a UUID. I do have a title, which is a text. I do have completed, which is a Boolean, and offset, which is an integer. And my primary key is composed with only the colon UID, and it's enough. Okay. You want to store together what you retrieve together. And this one is pretty simple because I can do everything working with the to-do only with the UID. So this graphic, it's called the Chet-Boko diagram. So here you see the table, and we simply say that this column is not the primary key, but the partition key. Okay. In a Cassandra table, you can have multiple rows in the same partitions. But not for today. And today is really about building the app and not focusing 100% on data model. What you need to understand for today is really you will shape your table not the same way as a relational. You need not only the entity, but also the queries even before starting. Okay, so we try the UI, we try the DB, so let's build what's in the middle. Okay, I think it's time to dig into, the drivers, we show that. How to connect to Astra, I will go fast with that. We download the zip, which is named the Secure Cloud, the Secure Connect bundle. And the zip is just a way to enable a two-way communication between you and Astra, just for the driver to be able to do what it does the best, so load balancing, failover, retry, because you do have a two-way TLS connection open between you and Astra. It's secure. In the zip, you do have a certificate. It's a strong authentication. But then, in the pipe, you can use something called SNI and do the same as you do with local Cassandra, load balancing among the nodes. So I don't want to go. I will want to go fast with that. But remember, what you need to connect to Astra is a secure connect bundle, and with only Cassandra, you don't need that. You simply need to provide IP of one node and username, password, key space. Okay. So connectivity, you know what? I did that already in front of you. It's like I'm running, but you know what? I would rather go a bit faster on those to give time to address the Spring Data part. So Mark, is on you.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So we've seen Spring Framework, we've seen Spring Boot, Spring Web MVC, and how does Spring Data play into that? Spring Data is a collection of portfolio projects. So it's not a single one, but I think we have 16 or 17 projects by now. And the mission of Spring Data is to give you back your productivity by abstracting away all the infrastructure tasks so that you can focus on your business and domain, right? With Spring Data, you get a consistent programming model and a consistent experience across various data stores like Cassandra, like SQL databases like MongoDB, Redis, and so on and so forth, in the form of a template abstraction that does all the business of creating connections, releasing connections, performing exception translations, so you as an application developer don't need to deal with driver exceptions directly, but rather you get a consistent hierarchy of exceptions. You get support for entity mapping, which basically means you don't get only access to a row or a document, but rather you can store in the database your to-do object or what have you and retrieve it, either through the template API, which contains the low-level operations that are supported by every database, or if you want to have a higher level of convenience, then you take the repository abstraction. And with a repository abstraction, and we will see that in a minute, you have a single interface with basic CRUD operations on it already available, like save, update, save, find all, delete by ID, these kind of things. And you can extend that interface by adding your own query methods to that. And Spring Data will try to make a good query out of the method name by query derivation. And this is good if you don't want to write any query language into your repository. Or the alternative is that you have the possibility to add string query methods if your query is a bit more complex than that. Right, so let's see what's next.
Yeah, so next is just, nothing special about that. Spring Data really is here to make you implement the DAO/repository layer very easily using the CRUD repository, but you say that already. I would rather go and show some code,
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
sure.
That's probably the better way. We gave you the documentation link in the slide before. The documentation is really well written. You do have everything you need to know to initialize a connection, to create a template, or use the repository. So let's see how we do. So for the Spring Boot starter data Cassandra, and it's starting to be a long name for the library. So instead of defining the SQL session on our own, we simply provide the proper key in the application.properties, and then Spring Data Cassandra, using the auto configuration we disabled in the beginning, will pick those keys and will initialize the connection for you. Simply as that. It's simply convention over code. Okay. And this is also the reason why we picked those keys in the first place. Okay, so let's see how it goes. This is my database. Gitbod is here. So, and I do have 2 of my tests running. I show that my table is there. I'm happy. And now I want to connect the application to Astra. So what I will do, I will create a bin. So simply put, if I want to connect to local Cassandra, there is nothing for me to do, because providing the keys in application.properties is enough. I do have everything I need. But to connect to Astra, Cassandra as a service, we need the zip. So I simply need a little tweak to tell Spring Data that, oh, when you build the SQL session, please add these parameter in the SQL session, just to be able to connect to Astra. And so to do so, I am simply okay. I will shut, close. Okay, I will use a simple bin called configuration bin, and I will create something called SQL Builder Session Customizer, and it will simply help me to add parameters to the SQL Session Builder. And here I simply use the key DataStax Astra Cloud Secure Bundle. Remember, /tmp/creds.zip. So what I will do, I will create a new package, conf or config, and I will create a new file, Spring Data config. It's not really, I mean, I put the name Spring Data config, but you could have defined this bin even in the main class. There is nothing special about the name Spring Data config. That's just me. Like that, I do have the feeling to know, oh, this is where I will customize my SQL session. All right, and so we did that. He's pretty happy. And now, because not only we do have the keys and we do have something telling Spring Boot how to build the session, we can go to the main class and remove the exclude we put in the beginning. Okay. Now auto configuration will resolve and it will connect to Cassandra. Oh yeah, okay, the word is there. It's still running. It's So seems like Spring Boot DevTool working even if there. And we already seen that it has been its restart. And okay, it started. And I can go to the open preview and everything, and it should be okay. So GP preview, and I can open that. Okay. I can also run this unit test stating that, yes, okay, you were able to initialize the Spring Boot context, you know, connecting to Cassandra. So now, in your app is connected to Cassandra. The only piece you need now is a repository to have all the operation to interact with your table. Okay, so let me close everything over here and move to part 4, which is the big finish. Okay, switching to part 4, and I do have my part 4 over here. So let's see. I don't want you. I don't want you. I don't want you. I don't want you. Okay, what I need is simply instruction to now leverage on Spring Data Cassandra to connect to my to-do tables. So first, we need some mapping between the object and the table, an entity. So that's not something new. Most object mapping using the term entity, so coming from GPA, I guess. So here we are using exactly the same vocabulary. So we are creating an entity. So using, I will stop double clicking here, I guess. I will simply, each time it just opened me the code. So table, okay, part of the Spring Data Cassandra mapping. Here I put all the constant from the column names. This is a best practice I tend to do, because if tomorrow you change the column name, you just have to change it at a single place, and everything will just adapt. And so also I tend to provide the at column with the column name, even if it's not mandatory at all, okay? Because it's a string, Spring Data Cassandra will totally know that you don't need the Cassandra type. It will map string from text. And because the field is named title, it knows that the title is the column you try to hit. But that's me trying to like a geek or old dude with my with my geekeries like to do so, because tomorrow I need to change offset by this is what I had to do, by the way. You see that it's named order, but if I use order, guess what? Order is a reserved keyword, and so it won't be happy. So I would rather change the name and use offset. Okay, so okay, it will. I could create a new object called to-do entity. Okay, it has been created for me already. Okay, so I need to update to-do entity with everything there. Okay. Now I do have mapping from object to table. And so now you might say, okay, the only missing pieces is the repository. And this is where Spring Data and Spring Data Cassandra will make all your dreams come true. Because guess what? You simply have to create an interface, okay? It's not a class, it's an interface. And say, okay, this interface should extend Cassandra repository. I provide the object, the entity, and the key in the entity. And with that, I do have all the find all, find by ID, delete all, delete by ID ready to go. And Mark told me just before the session that you don't even need the repository annotation. Spring Data will know that because you extend this Cassandra repo, it will be a bin and it will be wired. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. So make things as simple as possible. That's the way where we are going for.
Oh yeah, and I must say for this part, you do a fantastic job. So if I want to create this object, I will go to To-Do, create the new file. Oops. What is his name again? Okay.
To-do repository.
Yeah, To-Do repository Cassandra, I guess. But geez. Java. Okay, something like that. And I will copy that here. And I will remove repository then.
Yeah, good job.
And I will simply now import what I miss. Import UID. Ta-da! That's it. I do have my repository working with my table now, which is just amazing. So the full interface is one way to do it. Another way is going with the simple Cassandra repository. So now it's a concrete class. Okay, it's not only an interface. And why would you do that? It's just to have access to Cassandra operations and SQL session, because with those you can execute some dedicated queries you would like, SQL statement. So sometimes you don't want to only do create, read, update, delete, but you have dedicated queries, and so having access to the operation, it's pretty cool. You do have some operation like batch statement where you need to insert the same data in multiple tables. Those Cassandra template can be handy. So if you don't need the Cassandra template, go with the interface. If you need it, try the simple Cassandra repo. I mean, this is what I do, at least.
Yes, maybe to add to that, Spring Data isn't going to take your Cassandra away, right? It is something that wants to help you and use it wherever it makes sense. And still you have access to the driver or to lower level functionality, like Cedric mentioned.
Yes. And because Spring Data is super generic and work with multiple database implementation, you do have some generic methods like find all. And in the Cassandra world, find all and also distributed system, I mean Redis as well, and probably other distributed database, find all is not really a good idea because you are in production, you do have a lot of values in your DB. If you do find all, it will take forever. So find all is cool and neat to have in dev. You don't have to provide any parameter. It's probably always the first method you try. But that's really for dev. Please do not use find all. Do paging if you need to retrieve all the components in your table. Okay, and so now I could update the unit test. Okay, so let's copy paste all that. Because previously the unit test really was about initializing the content, but now not only it initializes the content, but using our to-do repository Cassandra. Okay, and this is because it is a test that is using auto-wired. I did not inject with constructor for this unit test. I beg your pardon.
Oh, well, with JUnit 5, you can even use method level injection. So you can put this auto-wire directly into the method arguments.
Oh, okay, that's okay. So
this is new. This is new.
Okay, that's cool. And so now, if I create a new entity and I save this entity using my repo, cross finger, I would have new data in my DB. So let's do that. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Ada. Okay, testing, opening Spring, connecting to the DB. Okay, you are connected, you execute your test. Successful, okay.
Well, something, yeah, it's okay. I just saw the warning.
Oh yeah, so yeah, destroy method clause on the bin with name. through an exception, create even executor terminate. Okay, that has been, we maybe try to close the session twice. Okay, just a warning. Okay, so cross finger. Let's go to our database. Okay, here it is, and select what we have in to-do key space dot to-do. Okay. To-do-do-do-do.
Select star from.
Yeah, the command you should never do with Cassandra, by the way. And guess what? Woohoo! Simple task, and string blah is there already. So string blah is simply because okay, let's do it again. Truncate table. Oh, you won't believe me otherwise. Okay, now the table is empty. And now execute the test again. You know, that's weird. You know, we inserted a single record and now you have 3. What the hell? Okay, running the test. All right, going there. Ask me for my tables, and yeah, now I have created a task using Spring Data from my project. And so now you do have the repo. The only remaining work is to change the REST controller to move from in-memory implementation we have to Spring Data. And so I've provided you the solution, and to see the solution, simply move to the next branch and have everything ready. Okay, so just we're running a bit out of time, so what I simply put here, go to 5. Okay, and now I'm on 5, and if I clean, okay, just before, I am on branch part 5, and I can go to my controller and see that now I have injected my to-do repository Cassandra using the using the proper way, so using the constructor.
Yeah,
and now I simply repo.findAll.stream.map.map, and boom, I'm good to go. And that's a pretty nice looking code, you know, just my opinion, but I find it's pretty cool now. You know, it's really the modern Java you would do by chaining all the call one after the other. With that, I should be able to start the app. So clean Spring Boot run, and I should be able to run the test because all method in the controller has been implemented for you. So this is my app starting. Okay, it's starting with hello world, and what I want to do is simply run the specification, which is, where are you guy? Okay, so let's do it. GP preview. I mean, the test was on part 4, so you know, I don't want to go back, so I'm going there. I'm going to part 4. A good developer is a lazy developer, so I simply want my readme to copy paste just to have the proper GP preview command, just to see, okay, GP preview, or first the spec. So I will run the spec over here. Okay. So spec is running, I'm populating my database, and if I go to my database, now if I select, boom, I do have task that has been created by my test, and instead of test, I can simply, moment of truth, not only show the spec runner, but show the real client. Okay, and now I do have this app, okay, running against my database. So sample task, yeah, I am happy. And now again, cross finger, go to my database, see what I do have, and here you are.
Yes, it's working.
Woohoo! It's working. So we're out of time. So the last part in part 5 was really taking the app as is, you know, it's working, and adding some annotation in the controller to have some client to test the app. So if I go to the end, which is the same app, but now enabling the documentation, okay, always, and now starting the app, okay, exactly that I did before. All right. And now if I open the preview, and I think it will open the preview or simply open a new tab. No, okay, let's do the preview. So what I would like to preview is, okay, let's do GP preview. And I would like to show GP URL 8080. Okay, still loading, so please load. Please hold the line. We try to connect you. Okay, reload. Do I have something wrong over here? Why is about blank, about block? $GP, you know, that's simply me probably not providing the proper URL when I do. So let's be lazy again. What I want to show is the endpoint. So that's yeah, it should be something like that, right? Not sure why I do have that. So GP preview, this guy. So this is indeed the to-do app that's answering everything I need. But if I do slash GP preview, okay, and now I remove but just simply go to slash. Is it happy now? No, still loading.
Still loading.
I don't know why. It's worked pretty well just before. Okay, so let me go over here.
Oh, here we
It's
go.
simply the preview that's not happy. I don't know why. Okay, but you know, nevertheless. So OpenAPI has adding a couple of annotation. You now have a client to test your API just like that. And I execute, and boom, I do have all the tasks I add in my database like that. Okay, so yeah, it was expected not to do the last part because it's simply adding annotation to the controller. If I put back the controller over here, you see now that we have introduced. Okay, let me click. Let me open again. To-do controller, did it? Where I am on the end. Oh, that's okay. See, Gitpod is just not happy anymore. I really need to close the session for today because the REST controller now should have all the annotation to work with OpenAPI. And just to show what it looks like, you go to the end, you show the code, and I'm on the end table, so that's weird. And go over here and to the controller, and now, okay, what the, okay.
No annotations.
Yeah. So is it only on part 5? Not sure why. It should be there. Maybe I've committed something. Okay, not sure why. I mean, on the end, it should be there. So let's see. No, it should be there. Okay, not sure why I do not have the annotation. They are there for sure, because if no annotation, I would have these clients. Okay, anyway, that was it for the hands-on. We're already out of time, so thank you to stay with us up to now. And just to close the session in a good way and good mood, let's play a game. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon.
Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
I found someone new now. I have more room, no more formats to chain me.
And as always, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notifications for all of our future upcoming workshops.